We pull out a Christmas movie, right? It makes perfect sense. Well, as we get closer and closer to Easter, I've thought from the beginning that each week the words get a little more difficult for us to sit with. And so as I thought this week about our word haunted, this book by Charles Dickens, A Christmas Carol, in case you didn't know where that was, or depending on which generation you fall in, depends on which Christmas Carol movie you resonate with. At 8:30, Reverend Ryan was talking about the Muppets version of the carol. I heard somebody say yes, yes, yes. This was what came to my mind when I was thinking about things that haunt us, right? The ghosts of our past. At least that's what we tend to think of as the things that haunt us. Bill is right. There is a little bit of mixture this week between haunted and regret. But I've decided as I've worked my way through them that these are not synonyms. Regrets, it seems, are about choices that we make, things we had control over. And we might think of Scrooge as having regrets, but it also really is a haunting. Regrets can absolutely haunt us. But it seems that haunting usually is things that we're not so aware of. Regret, stuff we regret, we know. I don't know about you, but when I regret something, it's like right there in the forefront, right? You're like, oh yeah, that thing. If I could redo that I would do. Scrooge doesn't seem to have that. And if you've not read A Christmas Carol or seen A Christmas Carol and this is lost on you, I'm really sorry. I'm just assuming that every American understands A Christmas Carol at some point and on some level. Scrooge is not a nice person, but he doesn't seem to, care. When we regret something, that's something we feel badly about. That shows us that we care about that. I think if Scrooge were regretting all the crappy things he did, he wouldn't be surprised when the ghost of Christmas past shows up, and he wouldn't be so afraid of it, or when Jim Cratchit comes and says, "You're going to be haunted by 3 ghosts," I'd rather not. And that may be where you are this morning, as Ryan mentioned the ghosts that haunt us and how we might have an exorcism of them. You might be sitting there thinking, I'd rather not. But here's the thing. I think the things that we really don't want to face, the things that really, really haunt us this morning, are not our regrets at all. I think Scrooge, to start with, Scrooge was unwilling to face what he previously could not face, as David White, our Lenten prophet, says. David White says, "What once haunted him now becomes an invisible ally, a beckoning hand to our future." Scrooge's ghosts make what he previously could not face real. It was as if Scrooge didn't quite understand the consequences or the impact of what he was doing, and it was only when Scrooge faced those ghosts that he was able to really see reality. And being haunted. Haunted is the stuff that lives in the back of our mind that we don't pay much attention to during the daylight hours, but it's the stuff that wakes you up. What time does it wake you up? What time does it wake you up? Wakes me up at 3 a.m. Anybody else wake up in the middle of the night haunted by stuff? What? You'd never go to sleep? Yeah. You can't quite see it. Can't quite touch it, but it's there. It's a feeling or a memory. And I want to be real gentle this morning because I think the things that probably haunt us the most are the things we had no control over. They're the stuff that we didn't even know that we were going to have to turn and face. Because I think the things that really haunt us are not the choices we make, they're the ones that others made. I think we go through life and other people make choices and they toss it down like an old coat. And you pick up that coat and you wear somebody else's stuff. Maybe you don't quite know what I mean. I think haunting is stuff that isn't things we've done at all. It's the ghosts that live all around us from other people. It's the ghost of a grandfather who was an alcoholic, and that alcoholism has seeped through your family's story, but nobody really talks about it. It's a mother who was never present for you, or a father who was never around that haunts us. These are the things, these are the ghosts that wake us up. And we can't quite name them. We just know there's this something there. And we don't quite know what to do with it. Maybe you were haunted by the fact because you were told from the time you were small, you just need to grow up. If you'll just grow up and go to law school. You're so smart. Go be a lawyer. Be a lawyer and make a lot of money and make the family proud. But you decide to be a working musician. We had a lot of those in our previous congregations, a lot of kids who had come to LA to live the dream, to be in the music business or be in the acting business, and they had all these ghosts, these people in their head from the time they were small that said, well, if you just get a real job, you wouldn't be living in that crappy one-bedroom in North Hollywood that you can't afford. Just get a real job. Apparently there are ghosts outside coming in the building right now. We might be haunted by the fact that we grew up poor in rural America, and we were told that, you don't really amount to much, and you'll never really amount to much, and we live our whole lives hearing that, and we work our tail off to overcome it. So that maybe someday we'll believe something different. Maybe you are haunted by the fact that you've been told your whole life that sticks and stones may break your bones, but words, well, isn't that the biggest lie anybody ever told a kid? Some of you are still haunted by the words that were said to you as a kid. Not a choice you made, but somebody else made. And those ghosts walk around in your head all day long. Or maybe you were told, like I was, as a kid, that you were a great athlete. And so everything you did revolved around being that great athlete, and when you decided being an athlete didn't bring you joy anymore, well, what good were you anymore? Who were you supposed to be? And you end up lost or miserable or both. This, my friends, I think is the difference between regret that Ryan will talk about next week and haunted. I think the most dangerous and haunting ghosts of our past are the ones that other people put on us. And we keep carrying around like an old coat that doesn't fit us. And it's stuff that holds tremendous power over us. And as we get closer to Holy Week, the words get more heavy and more hard for us to hang on the cross. When I first was thinking about this, I thought, maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm the only one with ghosts that other people hung up in my closet. But then I was watching on the elliptical the other day. I was watching Grey's Anatomy. So we did this, I didn't mean for it to happen at 8:30, but at 8:30 it seemed to be really healing for people. Apparently there's shame in still watching Grey's Anatomy for some people. It's on Thursday nights, and it's a Shondaland show, and I still watch it. And if you still watch it, there's no shame in that. Thank you, Diane, at Nikki. At 8:30, apparently there was all this shame around watching Grey's Anatomy. And people were like, I still watch that, but we don't tell anybody. It's a ghost you can let go of. You let right go of that ghost today. Grey's Anatomy is a show by Shonda Rhimes, and it's about a hospital and these doctors that work in the hospital. And Miranda Bailey is the chief of surgery at Gray Sloan Memorial. Miranda is a strong African American woman, a brilliant surgeon, and she is a tough nut to crack. She is hard-nosed and no nonsense, and she runs a tight ship of Gray Sloan Hospital. Now, if she just had a chaplain, that place would be in a lot less mess, I'm just saying. She just needs a good chaplain. Miranda doesn't mess around until she finds herself one day having a heart attack. And the rest of the show is this back and forth about Miranda's ghosts. Back and forth between Miranda Bailey being in the hospital and flashbacks to her childhood as she comes face to face with all the ghosts that have been walking around in her soul and in her head for all these many, many years. And one of the ghosts we meet is a living one, and it is Miranda's mother. An overprotective mother, always trying to protect her from the dangers of climbing trees and staying out past the time when the street lights come on, or, God forbid, going to Wellesley, to college. A full 6 hours away, it can't be safe in the city. And right before she goes off to college, Miranda's father explains to his young daughter about this ghost that had haunted their home. You see, Miranda had had an older sister who died of SIDS at 2 months old. It was nobody's fault. And yet her mother so desperately wanted to keep Miranda safe because she couldn't keep her sister safe. And all these years Miranda had not known, and yet this ghost had been walking around her mother. And it impacted Bailey. She was overly cautious. She tried really hard never to be weak. Needing help, of course, was never an option, which is why when Miranda was having a heart attack, she went to somebody else's hospital so she wouldn't have to tell her own doctors that she was in trouble. Not the great Miranda Bailey. And she was always pushing back against that ghost in her head, cautioning her, now be careful, be careful. Always reining back Miranda's hopes and dreams. And so when Miranda's husband decides to make a career change and become a firefighter, it was more than Miranda's heart could take. How could she protect him? How could she keep him safe? How could she keep her family safe? And it was only when all these gold ghosts that had been walking around in her head, only when she was willing to come face to face with them could she begin to heal. Could she begin, as David White says, to make a friend of the old voices that could offer her a beckoning hand into the future. And so, after all those years of trying to protect Miranda, and Miranda trying to protect her mom, so that her mother would never worry, so that her mother would always make sure she was okay, the end of the show is Miranda calling her mother. Mama, she says. the strong Miranda Bailey with tears in her eyes, says, "It's Mandy, and I'm hurt, Mama. I'm hurt, Mama." She came face to face with an old ghost. One that it wasn't a choice she made for herself or a decision that had caused her regret. And I'm wondering how many of us have similar stories. Maybe not an overprotective mother, but a ghost of some kind that walks around in your head from somebody else. What's keeping you up at night? Ghosts that sometimes we don't even realize are there, except that we do. Scrooge knew. And that's why Scrooge was so afraid. We just don't want to acknowledge them. We don't want to acknowledge their power over us. These old ghosts that haunt our souls. So this morning I'm wondering, what old voices do you need to turn the volume down on? Or turn off altogether? Turning off is a little more complicated, but at least for the morning, turn that old voice down that haunts you. What ghosts do you need to hang on the cross this morning that you can begin to let them die? What ghosts? What ghosts do you need to hang up there so that as we draw closer and closer to Easter, what ghosts do you need to hang up so that it might be well with your soul?